fellow commissioners, and they put together a task force of citizens asking that group to study that situation and come back and make some recommendations to the county commission. They chose the makeup of the task force very well. They chose people who were business savvy, who also had a passion for history. The group got to work, they hired some consultants, they came back to the county commission and they said, you know what, the stories are here, the artifacts are terrific, we think there's support in the community to do this, and we think that we can get into the museum business in a big way and tell this area's history. County commission said fine. The task force said, but wait, there's something else we're going to recommend. We're going to recommend that whether we do this or another group takes this project on, you, county, ask two things before you put any public monies into the project. You ask that a business plan be created that will stand up to public scrutiny, and that an endowment be raised so that the project is sustainable and that the county is not on the hook to fund ongoing operations into the future. County government doesn't hear a lot of proposals like that, and so they were pretty enthusiastic. They said, that all sounds wonderful. You guys are the ones to do it. Go get to work and make it happen. And by golly, the group made it happen. They raised that $11 million. They raised it on a vision before they even had a plot of land. What they told donors was, at the very worst, what will happen is there'll be a pool of monies that will fund history education efforts and historic preservations on some level. So even if we can't make this museum happen, we'll be doing something good in the community to preserve our heritage. In 1996, they opened a small, what we call a preview center in the convention center annex, which had teaser exhibits and some plans of the museum to come, things like that. We did some programming. The idea was that we'd be in the preview center for about 3 years. When we finally turned the lights off in 2008, we've been there for 12. Again, sometimes these things take longer than we might hope. But on January 17, 2009, it all came together and we opened the new center. Where we're located, downtown in the Channel District. This is Fort Brooke Okeechobee Park, which is our front yard. We're right across the street from the Forum, the aquarium, the big box hotels, the convention center, wonderful views of Garrison Channel and Harbor Island. It's a terrific location. As I was putting this presentation together, though, I was reminded this is a slide that probably was put together in 2006, 2007. So all these things that say new development, those didn't happen. Those are parking lots today, as you all probably well know. But I think eventually they will happen. And I think this is a location that is only going to get better over time. Of course, the Riverwalk also starts right behind our facility, which is a great amenity to downtown. Who are we? We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're operating a regional museum, and regional is very important. We are not a museum limited to the history of Tampa or Hillsborough County. We're a museum that covers the history of West Central Florida. We take as our mission area 24 present-day counties. Those counties in the mid-19th century comprised Hillsborough County, and over the years Hillsborough County has been divided up, new counties created. So that gives us a large palette from which to draw some pretty terrific stories. We tell stories that span a period of 12,000 years. Many of our visitors who come through, going back to that exactly what you didn't expect, are surprised by the depth of history that we have. They're surprised that we had any history before Disney World, and the reality couldn't be farther from the truth. We start our stories talking about peoples who inhabited downtown Tampa, building mounds in downtown St. Petersburg, mounds that were leveled by our forefathers and their infinite wisdom, and the contents of which were used for fill for various infrastructure projects. Every once in a while, someone will build a parking garage or a condominium, and they'll find some wonderful pottery shards or some spear points or something that give us some insight into who these people were. And of course, those inhabitants were Timucuan, Tocobagan Indian tribes. They were not Seminole tribes. They would come over later. And it was those inhabitants then that would make contact with the Spanish explorers who came here as early as 1528. By the way, European contact here, exploration here, almost a century before Jamestown and Plymouth colonies, which I think is pretty cool. $52 million investment. I don't need to overwhelm you with numbers, but I think this is worthwhile. Hillsborough County wound up investing $17 million in this project. The city of Tampa provided the land upon which the History Center is built. That has a value of about $2.5 million, and we raised from the private sector $33 million. So in this maybe rare case, the private sector actually did more than the public sector did. A little bit about the center. It's an E. Verner Johnson building that may or may not resonate with you all. E. Verner Johnson is an architectural firm out of Boston. They design museums exclusively. That was important for us because they are well-versed in the unique needs that museums have. They did a nice job for us, really squeezing a very limited budget and building on a site that turned out to be a pretty complicated site upon which to build. It's an award-winning building, and just some of the different awards that the building's won. 60,000 square feet, 4 stories in height, 17,000 square feet of permanent exhibits, 2,500 square feet of temporary exhibits that right now have Darth Vader's cape and all the stuff we talked about in the beginning. Tampa Hillsborough County Library satellite location. And I'll come back to that because that's very important. A branch of the Columbia Cafe. The Columbia restaurant has in our space a restaurant where they have tried to replicate the look and feel of their original 1905 era cafe, and that adds an awful lot to our visitor experience as well. And we are a green building, soon to be a LEED certified building. We anticipate either at the silver or possibly the gold level. Just quickly about the building. Because we're on the water, and because we're in an area that occasionally sees hurricanes, and because we're stewards of some of the most historically important artifacts anywhere in this area, we try to take some steps to safeguard the building as much as possible. I'm not going to be so foolish as to stand here and say, we built a hurricane-proof building. I don't know that anybody can do that, but we did certainly take hurricanes into account. So, and I thought for this audience in particular, you might be interested to know that it's a 4-story structure, but the first story basically does nothing. The first story is some limited parking, mechanical equipment, some storage. It's how you enter the building. But the first time you see an exhibit or an artifact in this building is actually on the 2nd level, which is at 28 feet. The 500-year projected flood elevation is 21 feet, so we're well above that. Also, I'm often asked about the glass. The glass is missile-resistant glass, 140-mile-an-hour rated, but we didn't want to take any chances, and even if this atrium area in the front of the building were ripped off in a storm event, there is a solid wall behind it before you get into the artifacts or exhibits. So we tried, and hopefully it will never be tested. All right, the Witt Research Center. This is a partnership that we enjoy with the Tampa Hillsborough County Library System. I applaud the library system, Joe Steins and his foresight. I think they do a terrific job looking for ways to really get the libraries out into the community, and this is a great example. What we have is a non-lending library in our facility, staffed by a professional librarian from the system. She serves then as a reference conduit for our guests and other patrons who come in as they're doing research on themes that we're exploring in our exhibitions, materials that relate to the artifacts that we have, genealogical kind of research. For the library, it gives them an opportunity to have a branch where they have really very little overhead. It's just the staff salary. For us, we can have a professional librarian working with our patrons, and we don't have to pay them. It's really a win-win relationship. And the librarian who is here is particularly talented and is doing a great job. And so it's really been a wonderful partnership. And I think we've just scratched the surface as to the neat things we might be able to do. We also participate in some joint programming together as well. We have subscription database access, the same as any other library branch in the county. And so I think the only thing that makes us different is maybe we have the best view of any library in the county because you are looking out on the channel over the park and on Harbor Island. We tried to build a different kind of museum experience, as I mentioned. We wanted to create a building where people would want to come and gather, to spend time, to come to events, programs, lectures, workshops, seminars, parties, And so it is a very light, open, airy space, and you see that particularly in the atrium area.